Hello everybody, my name is Eric Mullins, and today we're going to be checking out Katie Cole's Falslander's Ronin. She's a 1/7 figure, and I find it intriguing how the company that kind of owns Falslander is asking multiple different companies to make their figures. I can't help but wonder if this is going to create some sort of major visual quality control or paint application issues between the different figures. Different companies don't manufacture their products at the same place after all, so this could kind of ruin the cohesion of your collection of Falslander figures if these companies don't communicate with one another. And in truth, I have no idea if they do or not. That's something I would love to know, and if you happen to know, please write so in the comment section below, because I'm very curious about this. However, just looking at the Katie Cole figure and comparing it to Hemet Natel by Wing, I could say that they probably don't communicate that much. But I'll get more into that during my final thoughts at the end of the review. If you'd like to see her unboxing, I made a short video of it, and the link is in the description below. Does she wobble? Not too much. The sword, of course, because it's super large. This little stone that's holding her sheath definitely will come undone fairly easily after a little while if it is on a wobbly shelf, so be mindful of that. Her base plate sure is much nicer than a regular, boring, old, circular, single-colored base. I definitely like this, and I would take this over that any day of the week. My issue with it is that though it does kind of look like stone, there seems to be these kind of scratch marks over it here and there. It really doesn't look like they were done intentionally. It actually looks like maybe something involving the paint application process or something, because it's almost lines going all in the same direction. If any of you have had miniatures or anything that you've painted in your life and you used spray paint and let's say you just gunked it on there just a little too much, so you lose quite a bit of your sharper details, that's kind of the effect that this base plate gives. From a distance, it's not so bad, but when you start looking at things from up close, I don't feel the sharp rock edges. Everything just seems so smoothed out, and even for the width that we see around the base, there's just nothing to it. The stone here is very dark, gives off this wet-like impression, and that does make me think a bit of the initial illustration. However, on the initial illustration, you could see that she had this dead tree branch thing coming out along her right side, and I would have loved to see that here. That would have been really cool, and with the way that this sword comes out so far out, having like a tree branch kind of bring things out in another angle definitely would have helped bring some more symmetry to the overall design and unity of this figure. Comparing her base over to Hemet Natel's right here is not super great. The sculpt work is just sharper and it looks all around nicer. And I hate to be comparing her to Hemet like this, however, for some of you out there collecting all the Falslander figures, you have to know this. It's important because it's not going to look as polished as her stand when you're putting them next to one another. She also comes with this added little stone that we see here, and this is to hold her sheath, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, just so that it doesn't keep drooping down, which is we'll get into that later when I'm talking about the sheath. Her shoes look very nice. We get a beautiful silver metallic here, and lovely designs that go all the way up the legs to the point where it's very spicy, and I always find it intriguing when figures do stuff like this because it's not something most of us are going to see. Of course, it's that whole concept of, you know, it's spicy down there. It makes it feel more realistic. It gives off that tongue-in-cheek kind of fun aspect to it. The details that we have here are absolutely incredible, and it's a shame we don't see them. Maybe her initial design should have had a nice slit along the side of this hakama, so you could have had her leg coming out a little bit. I think that would have looked really pretty. But that's only for the concept of being able to see the hard work that they put into the legs. The design of this figure is absolutely gorgeous, and personally, I wouldn't really change anything on it. When talking about the design, of course, not necessarily the figure. Her main bottom dress piece around here along the front has nice little pleats into it, gorgeous shading, and the dress that surrounds that has a printed motif going around it with some nice shading as well. My one complaint is that I do find it looks kind of cheap. It doesn't feel like any kind of real material. Everything is matte. This figure is littered with matte. No offense to any of you out there with that name, but I am sick and tired of matte. I want gloss. I want more pearlization, and I know we get a little bit of it on here, but gloss is so important. It really helps certain aspects pop. and that's something that this figure is severely lacking. She has all these belted attachments going around her dress, and they're all done in a similar matte, very muted colors, which kind of feel washed out along with the dress piece, so it's nothing that really pops. On her back right side, we have this cool little wakizashi of sorts without the curve. Is very ninja, not that samurai of her, but she is a Ronin, and this might be something she picked up doing X, Y, or Z along her Falslander adventure and journeys. We get some shading and some highlights here, though I wouldn't say that they're particularly well done. They're just there to be like, yes, the outsides of these pieces are darker and the inner sides are lighter. It's really not that bad. It's well done. I just think it seems kind of lazy. We get this lovely little logo on the handle, and personally, I think that the handle should have had some sort of material wrapping or some sort of design to it, which makes it look comfortable for the hand to hold. As it is, it almost just looks like everything is in a tube of sorts. She has this golden belt, and it's very light. Metallic colors, no shading on this. It definitely pops out as a focal point, which is really nice, but I think I would have liked to see a little bit of shading here, maybe like darker golds, so certain parts of it could be accentuated just a little bit better. We also get a couple of mold lines on the side of the long hanging down parts. Just kind of a shame. Up near her waist, you have all these lovely folds in the fabric, where she has her cute little ebi that wraps around, goes along the back of her, and it doesn't tie into a bow, it just kind of hangs loose. This thing is done with a pearlized purple, and we have a lovely printed motif going all across it. The printed motif is very well put on there, and the sculpt work we get on this thing is really nice, and the material just seems so extremely thick. From along the back, you can actually see where her material from her dress piece folds around and then turns into this nice, soft, comfortable looking, bubbly material on the inside. It looks warm and comfortable, done with a matte purple and some decent shading that we have going around, accentuating more along the edges of the top. Then it goes into her body, which is darker. So at least this really creates a nice disassociation from the two materials, despite all of the paintwork being in matte. The sculpt work we get for her back is lovely. She is quite the petite character. We have this super nice defining indent for her spine, where she seems to almost have this parachute style hooks and attachments going across her body that are done in a darker gray. As you look down into her body, you kind of get a good peek at her bottom and her hips, which really does a good job at making it feel like she's wearing the clothes and not that she's just one chunk piece of plastic. Because as we saw earlier, we know she isn't.
Say what you wanna say to me now.
Meanwhile, along the front of her body, we get a really nice sculpt for her stomach, though the shading is only okay. It feels like they just kind of put highlights and darker colors anywhere. I can almost kind of see what they wanted to do here, rockin' hard abs, but rather than just one thick darker shade going across her stomach, they definitely should have polished it up a bit more and had it following certain grooves just a bit better. We do get a lovely navel here with a darker shading that goes up the center of her body and towards her rib cage, where, okay, here we go. This design is a really rough one, and that's because when turned into a 3D model like this, it looks like it's her rib cage. It doesn't look like she's got these metallic pieces or inserts or a certain type of Kevlar. The suit itself make this shape more relevant, and the tiny little lines we get underneath the ribcage area with the silver circles that seem to go up into this line work that go up into her chest really gives off this feeling that this isn't actually her ribcage, but added padding underneath. However, I personally, from a design point, would have put some line work going around that ribcage piece, put a different type of shade or gloss on it, so that way it really feels like it's armor chunked on, because when you look at it from most angles, it just looks like this rib cage is extremely pronounced, and it's not done particularly well, unfortunately. But when you look at it from a standpoint of it being an armored, padded thing, it's not so bad. Do with that information as you will. Her chest is modest, does look pretty nice. Everything is all skin tight with everything that she's wearing, almost like this is her actual skin, and considering the whole Falslander series really does give off those robot, mecha, genoid vibes, you could look at this and think, yeah, that would all make sense, because guess what? This body of hers is robotic. This is kind of like her second skin. In her initial design, she actually has a little number on her chest. This is extremely important because this number symbolizes her place within the Falslander squad of characters that all seemingly have numbers on them. I mean, Hemet Nemtel has that giant number 3 on her left chest, so it's really frustrating to see that they didn't even put this on this character at all. So she doesn't even fit in with her own squad anymore. Honestly, I don't know why they didn't do it. We get some decent shading here that accentuates what the shading would like to accentuate. We have this awesome chest harness piece along the top, which is just a continuation of all the gray attachments all over her body. Everything on this figure looks like she's wearing it because it is, in fact, other pieces of plastic that have been put on it after the fact. It's not all molded together as one big piece. So this is extremely nice, and from a distance, you notice it. From up close, you notice it. It's fantastic. Her shoulder looks pretty cool. We have like these little black patches on them along with a black border going around her bicep, and this again could have benefited from some gloss. As they go into these gloves, and they really go into these gloves, well, the gloves look pretty cool. However, the pieces of metal that we seem to have, almost like armor, are kind of bent and going in the same direction as her gloves are, so they're curved and warped a little bit, and personally, I think I would have liked this to feel a lot more solid. This way it looked like it's crazy hardcore armor, as opposed to another type of fabric on top of fabric. From a distance, it doesn't look so bad though. Her right hand looks okay. The fingers, I think they could have been a little bit better. There doesn't really feel like there's that much personality to them. I get that she's holding the sword, but everything just feels all molded together holding that sword like some sort of 90s action figure toy. And she's holding onto this epic Nodachi sword. This thing is cool. I'm calling it a Nodachi just because of how big it is, but as I had mentioned in my unboxing video, it's very possible that she's just really petite and that this is just a large sword for her to be holding. I love the type of magenta pink that we get for her handle to the sword. However, it seems to pop so strongly in contrast to everything else we have on the figure. There's no shading. I don't understand. Did they forget to do the shading on this part? Because it looks like it. It really just sticks out, almost like it's glowing, and if we had more elements like this throughout her entire clothing design and hat and everything, then I wouldn't have much to say about it, but because we only see it on this handle, and we see a little bit on the same type of plastic that they reused again on her sheath, it just doesn't fit well. We get a lovely gold at the pommel of the sword with this little tassel that's not a real tassel, it's just there, and this could have been real, honestly. The amount of figures I have that are 1/7 that are less expensive to this, that actually have a little moving tassel here that just gives a little more realism is nice. I don't mind when it doesn't move like this, but the problem is that the level of shading we get here, along with the way that everything is looped into one another and it's just like filled in plastic, I find just kind of looks cheap, and they didn't put the amount of effort and work that I would have liked to see them put into it. I really like this design that we have on it. It's seen on both sides, where we then go into the epic long blade, and this thing is painted very well. I love the use of a darker bolter gun metallic gray, which then goes into a beautiful silver. This is done so nicely. From a distance, it really gives that sharper edge, and even up close, it looks really terrific. Her left hand is holding onto the sheath, and this thing has a little bit more personality than the last one we saw, but it doesn't feel like she's holding this massive thing. I would have made the fingers look a little more dug into it or cupping it a little bit better. It just looks like she's holding like a piece of paper or something like that. You know what? She's for sure some super strong epic robot girl based off of all the designs here, so she doesn't need to be putting that much force. I guess I just was expecting a little bit more. And that's on me. That's a me thing. So for real, some of you might really like this. The sheath is nicely painted. We get a bit of metallics here and there. And oddly enough, we get a gloss black piece around the top. I don't know why they did this. It's literally the only piece of gloss that I can see on this entire figure. It's super weird. It's welcomed, but I would have liked much more of this throughout a lot more of this figure. The inside of the sheath is blocked off, and that's something I really don't like. They could have either painted it black, or they could have made it carved in just a bit more, so that way it looks like the sword can slide in there. I like to imagine that it's a piece that kind of opens when you put the sword in. When you take the sword out, it closes just to not get any dirt or debris in there while she's fighting, but that's me using my imagination, and from somebody looking at this figure on your shelf's standpoint, they're not gonna think that. They're gonna look at this and be like,
how does she put the sword away?
This was not handled particularly well. And we have this rope that matches up with the handle of her sword that has zero shading, looks really like a cheap chunk of plastic, and isn't particularly well sculpted. One of my biggest gripes with this entire figure is actually the way she's holding onto this sheath. it plugs in with a circular peg, and because it's a circle, we get a lot of movement over here, and it's part of why you need this tiny little rock to hold it there, which could have easily been avoided had they done any shape in the existence of shapes other than a circle, a square, a diamond. Heck, you could have done a star. You could have done a triangle if you wanted to save a little bit of money and you don't feel like cutting out 4 corners, but just 3 corners. It could have been a rectangle. It could have been anything, and then this would have stayed. I don't know why they chose a circle, and so many companies these days are doing this. I mean, I've got that Shinano figure, and her highly fermented grape juice set is also on there with a circle. And with time on something that wobbles, of course it's gonna fall down. So frustrating, and it could have been avoided so easily. Come on, Japan, I know for a fact you can do better. So in the future, please do. Oh boy, I feel like I'm really hitting this figure with one heck of a truck right now, and I'm feeling bad about it because I do think that overall she really looks pretty. Okay. Let's keep going. Her neck goes into her armored suit very well. I'm very happy about this. It looks like she's wearing it. She has a very tiny, petite, thin neck, but that works with the rest of her design. She really has that tsundere style look to her, with not really caring so much. She'd probably be like baka all the time to the guy she has a crush on. She's never able to express her emotions properly, but by the end of the anime, she most probably hooks up with the main character anyway somehow, or it's a show where you never know who the main character ends up with, but there's going to be a lot of people rooting for her, and she's more the introverted type. However, when it comes down to business, she's willing to slice off some heads. We don't get any kind of gloss for her lips, which is a bit of a shame. I would have really like to see some gloss for her eyeballs here, but everything is done fairly matte. The lines that we get on top of her eye are both associated to her eyelids. We do get some nice darker shading around the face, which contours everything really well. Her face is round and cute, sharp little pointy nose, extremely anime manga, and we have this lovely attachment underneath her chin that goes up into her hat. This hat is freaking cool, and the combination of having an oversized hat like this on such a petite body with an oversized dress like this is so beautiful. Underneath the hat, we have a nice level of detail that makes you think, oh yeah, that looks like a real hat. Meanwhile, on the top of it, we get some nice shading, beautiful metallics, a repeat of her circular little logo design that we see down on her wakizashi by her back right hip, a band that goes along the top that is actually carved in with the rest of this helmet, and okay painted to make it seem like it's not actually on there, with the piece that hangs off, done pretty well, nice shading. I love the sharp angle that we get of it coming down the hat. 3 epic rectangle cutouts that we get in the middle really does give us a good view of her face, and it is so cool to look at her through this lens. But let's say you're just really not a fan of the hat, and you don't want it on there. You'd rather see her passive-aggressive visage and her gorgeous hair, which is really well sculpted. This secondary head right here is immaculate. And before I even get in on talking about the hair, they gave her a little bit of gloss for her lips. Like, what? Why didn't you? Whatever. I guess they figured you're gonna see it a lot more here, so we're gonna put the extra 10 cents of work into it here. So I'm happy to see it. It looks nice. It really does help it pop just a tiny little bit on an otherwise completely matte face. It's gorgeous. Her hair sculpt is super nice. Looking at it from underneath, you can see that we have multiple layers. Everything almost seems like it's just one chunk that lays on top of her, but we actually have multiple connection points here. It's just that the carving is so deep for this figure's haircut that it looks good. It's hard to notice where all of the pieces are interconnecting, and if you really look, you can see it, but for the most part, on your shelf, you're not going to notice it. The ears also look pretty good. They have a nice level of detail to them. However, I would have liked for them to put a little bit of hair strands that comes down in between the face and the ear. Usually humans have this. Again, she might be a robot girl, so who knows? It's just that when you go straight from skin straight to ear and there's no hair whatsoever here at all, it's kind of weird, especially for this type of haircut. Of course it would have it. I don't imagine she just shaves her head up to here every single morning, but maybe she does. I'm not judging if that's what she's into. And in truth, when you look at her from most different angles, it's not something that most people usually think of. So, sorry for making you start to realize that. Now you'll probably go and look at every figure that you've ever owned and start seeing if they put that little strand of hair there, or a little bit of hair being pulled up or back or something, and then you'll be like, oh no, ah! Shut up, Eric. Upon her release, she was going for 22,000 yen, which personally I find a little bit expensive. However, it's more of an original character, and when things come out that don't have a license to them, it's such a weird gray area, because when it's licensed, you have to pay for the license. So because of this, you are going to be paying a premium on something. However, when it's something that's a little more original, you don't have that big license, but then you've got the creator, and the ball's kind of in their court at that point. They want to make money. It makes sense because a lot of times they're not a multi-billion-dollar company trying to make their own figures. They have a lot less to work with. And at that point, you have to think, okay, do I take less, take a hit, make things cheaper, and more people go out and buy my item because of this? Or do I try and charge a modest fee that's kind of competitive with other figures? Or do I just go off the rail and overcharge like crazy so I can make more money, so I can make more figures in the future? And personally, as a manga comic book creator that has their whole universe of characters, I wouldn't mind taking a bit of a loss so more people would be willing to buy the figure while still keeping a high level of quality. It's really dependent on the creators and how they want to do things. I do think that this is a little bit expensive for what you're getting, especially considering she might be standing next to your Hemet Natel, and this thing is nuts. And for just 2,000 yen more, I would say that the quality eclipses it by quite a bit. And that's kind of a shame. Like, the paint job here is much nicer. We have more differences in textures, and the overall use of different types of plastics really make this figure feel like a more premium product. Just the comparison of the bases themselves is a perfect tell to the kind of figure that you're getting here. As they go up, you can see the same amount of differences in the level of quality that we're getting. Wing just did such an immaculate job with this figure, and it's such a shame because had these companies communicated with one another, then maybe they could have lined them up so that they look nicer next to one another, and we unfortunately don't get that here. There are a whole bunch of bonuses that you could get with this figure. It's extremely rare I'll go after the bonus feature unless they're added actual swappable parts for a figure. Some of those extras really run up high in cost, and the artwork is beautiful. The design of this character is gorgeous. It's just having to get the whole collection and all the extra pieces. If you're somebody that already has it, that's amazing. Again, the artwork's beautiful. But if you don't have it, you should really think long and hard if it's worth spending the extra funds just to get them, because I think that she's a little bit expensive for what you're getting. Whereas this figure here, I think she's pretty much right on the money. Quality, design, and everything, like, she's worth 24,000 yen. This one I probably would have put it at 18,000. In truth, I think if you can manage to get her for that price or a little bit lower, then she would be definitely worth it. But over that, I'll put a link in my description below for the My Figure collection page of her in particular, so you can maybe see her in other people's collections and if it might match up with your own. I also suggest maybe checking out other people's reviews, because some of us definitely have different perspectives on things. Even if I'm trying to be as objective as possible, there's still some subjectiveness that creeps in there every now and then, and you might get a nice, good opinion from another collector and how much they adore many of the aspects. I personally didn't. It's not to say that one person is right and one person is wrong. It's just getting different perspectives is always a good thing, so that you can see if it's going to fit within your collection or not. And at the end of the day, if her price point is right and fits within your budget. If you like my video just a little bit, it doesn't cost much to pay respect to my extremely hard work making these videos and hit that like button. Like this figure here, I am a Ronin within the videos that I make, and I do everything on my own. So if you would like to continue following my journeys, why not hit that subscribe? And then there's that notification bell. If you'd like to be notified of my future videos, be sure to slash and hit that notification bell. Sometimes I do things and I'm just like, dang, that's cringy. How can I make it cringier? Thanks so much for watching. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Oh, my cute little Ronin. I was so hardcore on you today. It's such a shame. This is like one of those perfect examples of a figure that I really love. Like, for me, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give this figure like a 9, but that's super subjective. I just love the design so much that I'm able to see past all of her imperfections. It's just so cool. But objectively, oh man, almost makes me want to cry. I'd probably give her like a 6.5, so it's still kind of a pass. It's just, oh, I'm super sad now. Well, hopefully some of you that watch this video will love her as much as I do, despite my literal, unfortunately, cutting her down over and over. I'm done. I'm done with this video. Goodbye. See you on the next one.